Hello friends, in this tutorial you'll learn how to build this chat application with HTML, CSS, JavaScript and Firebase. We'll use the Firebase authentication for authentication. We'll use the Firebase Realtime Database for our for handling our messages, and we'll also use the Firebase Firestore to store our messages. So I'll show you the demonstration of how this application works. So let me try and log in for this user that was registered. I'll have Paul as the email and Paul123 as the password. So if I click login, it takes me to the home page, or where the chats are. So if you see here, we have some users, and it shows the status of the user, whether the user is offline or online. So we have such users. So if I try and open another window, I'll copy this link. So let me proceed to this window, paste that. So you see here, when I go to the home page, or where the chats are displayed, I cannot see the chats because I'm not registered. So I have to register first to see the chats. So I have a user called Anne. So I'll log in Anne, gmail.com, Anne123. So if I click get started, if we check for Anne, we see that Anne is not Anne really, but Paul. Let me reload. We check for this is Paul. Okay, we see Anne here. Anne is online. See? Now if you check for Paul here, we see that also Paul is online. So, and also we can chat. So let me chat with Anne here. So if I say hello Anne, we check the messages here. If I click send, we get a message here, and you can see the message is real time. There's no delay. You don't have to reload the server. Okay, so this is what we'll be building, and if you can see here in our messages, you can also use the emoji. You also use the emoji for the chat. Let me use that emoji, say hey. So you see here we have this text message. So this is a very nice project to show in your portfolio, and I'll show you how we'll build this from scratch. So without further ado, let's get started. Okay, so let's get started. I'll open my editor. I'm using VS Code. So I'll open my editor here, and I'll create an index.html file. So in this project, we'll be using Bootstrap. So if you understand a little bit of Bootstrap, you're good to go. Then I'll have, so the name for this app, so let's get started. I'll open my editor. I'm using VS Code. So I'll open my editor here, and I'll create an index.html file. So in this project, we'll be using Bootstrap. So if you understand a little bit of Bootstrap, you're good to go. Then I'll have, so the name for this app, I'll have it as Tujuane, which is a Swahili name, meaning let's know each other. So I'll have the Bootstrap link. Let me use this account. So we'll go to the Bootstrap documentation and copy the link. So we'll use the CSS. We don't need the JavaScript. We'll just copy this and I'll paste it here. Let me have a comment, Bootstrap CDN, or I just say link. Okay, so I'll have it there. Okay, so here we'll give this body a class of bg dash dark. We'll have a nav. We give it a class of navbar bg dash body dash tertiary. Is it tertiary? bg dash primary, and we'll give it a padding of 2 on the left, right, and top and bottom. We'll have a div. Inside that nav, we'll have a class of margin on the x-axis to be 3. We'll have an anchor tag inside that div. We'll give it a class of navbar dash brand. We'll give it a text of white. Okay, we'll have this to be, actually it will go to the home page. Inside this anchor tag, we'll have an image. So let's search for an image, but for now let's just build the whole components, then we'll download the image. So we'll give it an alternative text will be logo. We'll have a width. We'll give it a width of 30. We'll have a height. We give it a height of 24. We give it a class of d-inline block. That is for the display. d-inline block. Then we align this text top like so. So the text for this will be the name Tujuane, which is the name of the chat app. Below this nav tag, we'll have a div. Okay, actually we'll have we can use a div. Let's say d. We give it a class of d-flex justify center content. It should be justify content center, not the other way. And dot align items center. We'll have a flex column like so. Inside the div, we'll have a h1. We'll give it a class of text white. We'll give it a margin on the y-axis to be 5. then the text for this will be welcome to Juane chat up, like so. Below the h1 we'll have a button. We'll have this button. We'll give it a class of btn. Actually, it should be btn.btn-primary. We'll use the bootstrap primary color. Inside the button we'll have an anchor tag. We'll give it a class of text-white dot text-decoration to be, we'll have it as none, and the text will be get started. So the link for this will be /home. It will take us to the home page, which we don't have yet, home.html. And I think this is all we need. So I'll open this file with the live server. So if you don't have live server, you can just go to the extension and you will search it here. I'll search for live server. So without manually reloading your page, you'll use live server, which will automatically detect changes in your HTML file, and it will display the page with the updated details. So we have live server here. So for me it is already installed. For you, you can just click install and you'll be good to go. So here we'll click this tab here. So if I click live server, let me see, it should open a window. So we see we have an error here. Let's fix that. So here we should have a primary color. Let me remove this database, we don't need it. So we should have a primary color here, but it is displaying a background color of white. So I've gone through the issue, and it is the version of Bootstrap that is conflicting with the classes names. So I'll just copy what I had before in the previous build. So we'll copy this link. We'll copy this Bootstrap link. And now if we check, we have a primary color. So let me search for this icon here. So favicons. Yeah, we'll use this favicon. We want a message icon. A message. Is it message? Let's use this one. Download. Yeah, we'll use that one. We'll have it as SVG. Yeah, I'll just use the PNG. Show in folder. I'll drag and drop it here. Close this window. I'll create a folder. I'll have the folder as images. Drag and drop there. Then here we'll have that slash. It should be let me copy the icon. Yeah, so the source should point to the images and the icon 8 image. So now if we check, Let me reload this. So we have this icon and this name. Nice. So let's continue and build our register and login pages. Let's begin and build our register and login pages. So I'll create a folder here and have it as views. Here I'll create the register.html file. Register.html. We'll also create the login.html file. So we'll be using Bootstrap. So I'll just copy this link. We'll use this link. We'll use the Bootstrap link. Let me expand this here. I'll change the title to be Tujuane, that is Tujuane dash login. Here I'll have that Bootstrap link. So we'll begin with the body. So I'll give it a class. I'll give it a PG dark. I'll have the text to be white. We'll have a H1. I give it a class of text dash center. We'll give it a margin of 3. We'll have the text to be Tujuane login. Below the H1 will have a div. In this div, we'll give it a class of margin top of 3. We'll give it empty dash 3. We give it a margin bottom of 3. We'll have a H1. We can just, let me have it as a H3. We'll have a class of text dash info. We'll have the text to be center. So we'll use text dash center. We'll give it a margin of 2. We'll also give it an ID of info message. So make sure these IDs are correct because we'll be using them in the JavaScript part. So we'll have a H3 which will be empty. Outside this div, we'll have another div. We give it a class of container. We'll have a div here. We'll also have a class of form dash group. We give it an MB dash 4. We'll have a label. So the label will be, we'll have a class of label. We'll have the label, have it as email. We'll have the input. We'll have the type to be email. We'll have a class of form dash control. We'll have an ID. We'll have it as email. We'll copy this div and use it for the password. So we'll have the label as the password. We'll have the type to be password. We'll have the ID to be password. Outside this div, we'll create another div, the same as this one. Just copy that one, and I'll have a button. So I'll just remove this. Yeah, remove, and I'll have a button with a class. We'll have a class of btn-primary. We'll have an ID of submit. We'll have the text to be submit. Okay, so let's see how it looks like. So we'll open this with the live server. So we have this form. Let's proceed and add other texts. We give it a class of empty of 4. That is for the margin top. And here we'll say don't have an account. We'll have an anchor tag. This will take us to the register.html file, and the text for this will be register here. So if we check here, we have this text. So that is the login page. Let's copy everything here and create our register page. So I'll copy everything, and what we need for the register is the name, the email, and the password. So I'll copy this and paste it here, and I'll replace this with the name. We'll have it name. We'll give it the ID to be, we'll have name, and for the text here we'll say already have an account. Actually, we'll say already have an account. We'll replace this link login.html, login here. So now if you check our page, if you click register, so we replace this login with register. So let's do that. We'll replace this with the register, and then we'll change this login to be register. So that is it for the views, the login and the register. Let's proceed now and create the home page where we'll display the charts. Okay, so we had the login and the register pages. Let's build our home page. So let's build the home page. So here we'll create home.html. We'll have that. Let me expand this. So we'll use the same links here, the bootstrap link. Let me copy it and have it here. We'll say to Giovanni dash, we'll say home. What do we need? We need that link for now. Yes, let's continue and have our nav. For the nav, since we had it earlier in the index page, I'll just copy it. I'll copy this nav and have it here, like so. So below the nav, we'll have a h3. We give it a class of text dash center, we'll give it a text dash white. We'll have the bg dash dark. Is that even necessary? Okay, let's have it. bg dash dark. We'll give it a padding of 4. We'll have a font awesome icon here. So we'll give it a class of FA. We'll say FA dash solid, FA dash message, text dash white, empty. I think it's not a must that we use font awesome. Since I had the image for the message icon, we can use it here. Let me just copy it here since I had it here. And yeah, we have it in our nav. So I'll just copy this image and use it here. The path will change. Will the path change? No, the path will not change. So let's see how the page looks like. Open here. Okay, let's continue. Do we need this? Yeah, let's have that for now. And the body, we can wrap this in a div. Div .bg dash dark and have it there. Yeah, for now. Okay, let's continue. We'll have below the h3 we'll have a div with a class of container. We'll have a h3. We give it a class of text-info. Text-info. We'll have the text-center class. We'll give it a margin to be 2. We'll have an ID of info message. We'll have a p tag below with a class of text-white dot text dash center. We give it a margin of 2. We'll have an ID to be info msg, like so, and we'll have it as blank, empty, that is. So outside this div we'll have another div with a class of container. We'll have another div with a class of d-flex, that is for display flex, align dash item center, give it a margin bottom to be 2, and we'll have the ID to be user dash item and have it as empty. We'll continue and have another div with a class of row. We'll have a h4 with a class of mx, that is for the margin on the x-axis, to be 4. We'll give it a margin bottom to be 3. We give it a margin top to be 2, and we'll have the text to be message. We'll continue and have another div with a class of call -md -4 dot msg box. So this will be coming from the CSS, which we don't have yet. And we also have another class, hide box. This will be coming also from the CSS, like so. We'll have another div with a class, or I can just use emet here. You can say box that's message. We'll give it an ID to be box message, like so. Outside that div, we'll have a text area. I'll just have the name to be message. We'll give it the ID to be also message. We don't need the calls and the rows. We'll just have the class. We'll say form-control. We give it a margin top empty -4. Should be here. Empty -4 will have a placeholder. Will say write message, like so. Below the text area, we'll have a button. We'll have a class name. I'll give it a class of btn -outline -primary. We give it a width of 100. We give it a margin on the y-axis to be 3. We'll give it the ID of send message, where M is uppercase, send message, and the text will be sent. Below this div, we'll have another div with a class of call -md -4. We'll give it an ID to be users -info. Okay. Users -info. Let's expand this. Yeah. So in this div, inside this div, will display the users. So for now, we'll have it as empty. So yeah. So if we check here, we open it, we have something like that looks like this. So let's continue. We'll create a CSS folder, CSS, and inside this CSS we'll have a main.css file to contain our styles. So we'll not type in the styles. I'll just copy them from the previous build. So let me copy these styles. Just copy everything. Copy raw contents and paste them here. So we'll link this CSS file with our pages, because if you see here, we have a font family. So I want the font family to be used by all of the pages. So we'll have a link. We'll have it to be CSS. We'll replace this style.css with /css/main.css. We'll copy this here to the home page, like so. We'll have it here in the login, and here it should be dot/css/main.css. We'll copy this link and have it here inside, like so. So now if I reload the page, we get this font size. Perfect. So let's now set up Firebase, and we'll do the authentication for the register and the login page. Okay, so let's begin now and set up our Firebase. So I'll open this account and I'll go to the Firebase site. Okay. Okay, we'll proceed to the console here, or yeah, we'll proceed to the console. So let's begin now and set up our Firebase. So I'll open this account and I'll go to the Firebase site. Okay. Okay, we'll proceed to the console here, or yeah, we'll proceed to the console. Proceed to the console. Here we'll add a project. So I'll say tujuane -chat. I'll continue. I'll disable analytics. Create this project. Okay, so we'll click continue. So we'll be using authentication. So, but before we start using authentication or Firestore or the real-time database, we have to add Firebase to our web app. So I'll give it a name. I'll just say to Joanne. We'll not be using the Firebase hosting, so I'll just proceed and register this app. Like so. We'll not use npm, we'll use the script tag, so I'll just copy this. So we'll not be importing anything, we'll use the CDN links. So what happened? Okay. Project settings. We get this, we want this. I'll copy it. Then here, we'll create a config file. I'll create a folder here, JS folder. We'll create a config.js file and I'll paste everything here. So I'll say Firebase dot initialize app. Then we want to initialize this Firebase app. So we'll pass the Firebase config object inside here. Firebase config, like so. So for this to work, we have to import it inside our register page. So we'll start with the registration. So I'll just have that script here. So we'll say script src, it will point to ./js/config.js. We also need the Firebase links, the CDN links. So I'll copy them from the previous build. We'll copy these scripts here and we'll paste them. We want them to be above, since the config will be using the Firebase. From these links, we'll have it below so that it can have access. Okay, like so. Next, we'll create a register.js file for the registration. So let's do that. We'll create inside the JS folder, we'll create the register register.js file. Then here we'll handle the submit. So if we check here, when the user clicks the submit button, we want to collect all this data from the forms. So here we'll say document dot get element by ID. We want the submit event, the submit ID. So we want to add an on-click event. On click, when the user clicks this button, we want to do something. We'll have a function here. We'll get the name from the forms. We'll say document dot get element by ID. Then we want the email, not the email really, but the name dot. So the name contains the value, so we'll say dot value. We'll proceed and have now the email. So we'll say const email will be equal to document dot get element by ID. We want the email. Inside the email, we have the value dot value. We'll also have the password. We'll say document dot get element by ID. We want the password which has the value. So now we'll call in firebase.auth. Firebase .auth dot create user with email and password. Here it takes two parameters, arguments, that is the email and the password. So we'll attach a .then method which has the user credentials which are getting after we have registered this user credential. Should it be, actually it is a callback, so we wrap this in these curly braces, or we can just pass an arrow function here. User credential, we want now to log to store these user credentials in the local storage so that we can use it whenever we want to inside the browser. So we'll say local storage dot set item will have the user as the key, then we'll have JSON stringify to have these user credentials as strings. Because the local storage cannot store objects, it stores values as keys. So we'll convert that to be JSON.stringify. We pass in the user credential like so. So here we'll create a constant variable, have it as user ID, say user credential dot user dot UID. Now we'll store this user to the database. So how do we do that? We say Firebase dot Firestore. Here we'll create a collection. We'll say dot collection to create a collection. We give it the name of the collection, which is users. We say doc, which will have it as the ID for that user. So we'll pass in the user ID. So this will be the ID for this user. So I have a mistake there. User. Then we'll proceed and set the document to contain the name. So instead of doing name set to name, we can just, if the key and the value are the same, we just assume one. We just have the key. We say email, and we want also to store the user ID. This should be like so. Now we attach a .10 here, then which we get the user back. If we get this user back, we want to redirect the user to the home page, not the index, the home page. So we'll do window dot location dot is equals to, that is slash home dot HTML, like so. If there is any error, we'll have a dot catch method. We get this error. So if there's an error, we'll just do document dot get element by ID. We want the info message. We'll do dot inner text, and we'll have the error, the message, like so. So this is for the registration. Let's proceed now and do the login functionality. Okay, so here we'll copy these links. Just copy these links. I'll paste them here. Then we'll create a script, src ./js / register, not /register but /login. Then we also want it for the register. We did not create here, so do ./js slash the register.js file. So here inside the JS folder, we'll create that login.js file like so. So we'll do the same like we did here. We listen on this on click event. So we'll do document dot get element by ID. We get submit, which is the name, which is the ID for the button. We say on click event, we'll have a function, or we can just use a callback, that type of function. Then we'll get the email. We'll say document dot get element by ID. We want the email, which has the value. We get the password, document dot get element by ID, the password, which has the value. Now let's log in. We'll say Firebase dot auth dot sign in with email and password. We pass in the email and the password. Email, password, like so. We do a .10 where we get the user credential. User credential. We set this to be the we set this inside the local storage. We do local storage dot set item with the key user. Then we say JSON dot stringify user credential. Have it now as JSON. Then after we set that to the local storage, we want to redirect this user to the home page. So we'll say equals to slash home dot html, like so. If there is an error, we'll do a catch method here. We catch this error. We'll say document dot get element by ID. We'll say info message dot inner text to be the error which you're getting dot message, like so. So that is for the registration and the login. Let's proceed now and handle the chat messages. Okay, so let's try now and see if we can register and log in a user. So we'll open the browser. Let me go to views / register. So let me register Kevin at gmail.com. Kevin 123. So if I try and register, we get nothing. Let me inspect, check the console, and quote E, failed to load the resource the server responded with a. So if I domain global reason, configuration not found. Configuration not found but we had our configuration here. So okay, so we need to configure, we need to configure the authentication and the Firestore database. So here we need to configure that in order to use authentication. I'll click get started, and we'll be using these native providers. We'll use the email and the password. We have to enable this. We'll not be using the email link. We'll click save. Okay, so we also need to configure the Firestore database. So let's wait, click create database. We start in test mode, click next, click enable. Like so. So if we check the rules here, let us check the rules. Allow read write if request time is okay. So let's now try and register a user. So we have Kevin, so let's try and register again. Nice. So if we check our Firestore database here, we see a user. We should see a user. My internet is a bit slow, but okay, we should have Kevin here, but it's taking longer. Let me try and reload. Okay, we'll just continue. So wait. So if we see here, if I open this page on another browser window, let me open here. We don't want a user that is not authenticated to access this page. So what we'll do, we'll create an adapter which will check for the user. If the user is not found, we'll redirect that user to the register page. So to do that, we'll create a file here inside the JS folder. We'll have it as main.js. We'll do firebase.auth we'll do on auth state changed. We get that user. So we'll say if not user, if there is no user, we want to redirect this user. We'll do window.location.href. We want to redirect this user to the register page. So we'll do /views /register.html, like so. So we'll have it inside the home page. So let's have it here. We'll do a script src dot slash gs slash. We also need the config. We need the main .js like so. We also need the Firebase links, so I'll just copy them from here. Copy these scripts and paste them above everything like so. So now if I open that incognito window, where is it? Here. We cannot go to that page. So let me type it out. home.html. You see, it redirects me back to the register page. Cool. So let's handle the messages. But let's try the login. Actually, we have not tried the login. I'll close this console. I go to /views, login. So now if I try and log in Kevin at gmail.com, Kevin123, it should take me to the home page. So let's try now and see if we can register and log in a user. So we'll open the browser. Let me go to views/register. So let me register Kevin at gmail.com, Kevin123. So if I try and register, we get nothing. Let me inspect, check the console. Unquote E, failed to load the resource the server responded with a. So if I domain global reason, configuration not found. Configuration not found, but we had our configuration here. So okay, so we need to configure, we need to configure the authentication and the Firestore database. So here we need to configure that in order to use authentication. I'll click get started, and we'll be using these native providers. We'll use the email and the password. We have to enable this. We'll not be using the email link. We'll click save. Okay, so we also need to configure the Firestore database. So let's wait, click create database. We start in test mode, click next, click enable. Like so. So if we check the rules here, let us check the rules. allow read write if request time is okay. So let's now try and register a user. So we have Kevin, so let's try and register again. Nice. So if we check our Firestore database here, we see a user. We should see a user. My internet is a bit slow, but okay, we should have Kevin here, but it's taking longer. Let me try and reload. Okay, we'll just continue. So wait. So if we see here, if I open this page on another browser window, let me open here. We don't want a user that is not authenticated to access this page. So what we'll do, we'll create an adapter which will check for the user. If the user is not found, we'll redirect that user to the register page. So to do that, we'll create a file here inside the JS folder. We'll have it as main.js. We'll do firebase firebase.auth firebase.auth we'll do on auth state changed. We get that user, so we'll say if not user. If there is no user, we want to redirect this user. We'll do window.location.href. We want to redirect this user to the register page. So we'll do /views /register.html like so. So we'll have it inside the home page. So let's have it here. We'll do a script src./js/ we also need the config. We need the main.js like so. We also need the Firebase links, so I'll just copy them from here. Copy these scripts and paste them above everything like so. So now if I open that incognito window, where is it? Here. We cannot go to that page. So let me type it out. home.html. You see? It redirects me back to the register page. Cool. So let's handle the messages. But let's try the login. Actually, we have not tried the login. I'll close this console. I go to /views login. So now if I try and log in Kevin at gmail.com, Kevin123, it should take me to the home page. After a few minutes or so, I found out the error. So the error was with the, if you check here, let's see, let's try again, Kevin123. So if we check the console, this was the error that we were getting. You're getting some network issues. That should not be the case. Okay, we get this failed to load. The server responded with a status of 4.4, meaning it failed. Okay, oops, we failed to link these pages correctly. The login.js file. You see, this was the mistake that we did. So we should have this extension.js extension here. So now if I save and go back to the page, now if I try, let me clear this console. Now if I try and log in Kevin, I expect it to work. So let's do Kevin123. If I submit, we get Kevin, which we logged, and then we get redirected to the home page, which is awesome. So let's try and work with the messages functionality, and also I'll show you how the real-time database works, and we'll connect the real-time with the Firestore, and that will get the functionality of a real-time chat app. Okay, so we finished with the login and the register functionality. So we'll proceed and work on this message functionality, where we'll display the current user and the messages for each user. So what we'll do in this lecture, I'll show you how to show a status, an online status. If the user is online, we show an online status. If the user is offline, we'll go ahead and show that offline status. So how do we do it? Remember, when we logged in the user, we saved the credential in the local storage. So if I open my console and check the application here, if I check the application and proceed here to the local storage, we get this user. So we'll keep track of this user and we'll check if this user is online. So how do we achieve that? We use the Firebase Realtime Database to get the offline and online status. So let's start working on that and see how it really works. So I'll create a JS file here. I'll have it as online status.js. So here we'll get the current user that is logged in. So we'll have a function. We'll say get online status. We'll do Firebase dot auth dot on auth state changed to get that current user. So we get the user back. I'll have an arrow function here. So we'll create a variable for that user. We'll say const current user will be equal to the user which has the ID of that user. We'll proceed and create the status when the user is offline or online. So what I'll do, I'll create a object here. We'll say user, or instead of doing user, we can say is offline. Actually, what we need to do is we need to create a path in the real-time database to store that user. So we'll do const user status database reference will be equal to Firebase dot database. Okay, and here we'll create database. We'll create a reference, a location that is to the real-time database. We'll have it as status, and it will contain that current user. So we'll do a concatenation here. We'll say current user, which is the variable that we had for the ID. We'll proceed and create the object that will have the status when the user is offline or online. So we'll say is offline for database. For database will be equal to, we'll give it a status, we'll say offline. So this is for the user when it's offline. We'll do a last change. This should show the last time that the user was online. So that means the user is offline. Last changed, not last managed. Last changed. We'll do Firebase dot database. We access that location dot server value. Actually, not the location, but the inside this real-time database, we have a server value. So we do a server value which contains the timestamp. The timestamps in caps. Timestamp, like so. We proceed and create for the one when the user is online. So we'll do const is online status is online for database. For database, we'll set it equal to, we'll have an object which will contain the status. The status for this will be online. We'll do last changed. We'll have it as Firebase dot database dot server value dot timestamp, like so. So now we'll create a database that will store these connections. When the user is online, we'll store that status in a collection in the real-time database. So here we'll do Firebase dot database dot ref. So this location should be special. So this is a special location in the Firebase Realtime DB called ./info. If you check here, it is different from what we created here. So that means we are accessing a directory somewhere. Then we store this connection. Connected. We attached on a listener. We have a value. Then we write a function which has a snapshot as a parameter. Snapshot. We say if snapshot dot val is equal to false, then we return. Else we set this user to be, not that we set, if snapshot.val is equals to false, we return. Otherwise, we say user status database reference, which is this location in the real-time database. We say on disconnect. That means when the user disconnect from the connection, on disconnect, we'll set when the user disconnects from the network, or when the user is set to offline, or the user closes the connection, goes offline, we'll set to is offline for database. We'll set this status here. Dot then we have a dot then method. We have a function here. Create a function like so. We'll set the user. So if the user is online, we'll set, that is, to is online for database. Okay, like so. So now here we'll call this function that we created. We'll say get online status. So whenever we open the home page, we want to get that user and store the connection status. So to do that, we'll have a script for this. So inside the home page, the home.html, we'll create a script .src.js/online status. So that is it for the connection. Let's proceed now and handle the send messages functionality. So let's start working on the message functionality. So here in the JS directory, we'll create the send message file. We'll say send message.js. So here we'll start by getting the current user. So get current user. We'll do const. We'll have it as auth user. When we logged in, we stored these users to the local storage. So we'll get that item in the local storage. So we'll have to pass that to JSON. So we'll do json.pass. We say local storage dot get that item with a key of user. We'll proceed and display all the users. So all users, store all users in array. So we'll have a variable here. We'll have it as all users. So this array will give us the ability to store the users that we are getting from the collection. So to do that, we'll say firebase.firestore. Before even we proceed, we have to make sure that we enable the Firestore DB. So let's proceed to the Firebase console. I'll close this. We'll make sure that we enable the Firestore DB. So yeah, we have a collection. I forgot we created a collection with the users. So we can go ahead and get the collection from these users, get the data from this collection, that is. So to do that, we say firebase.firestore.collection collection called users. We say .get. Let me format this. We say .then. We attach a .then, or we get the query snapshot. We get that snapshot like so. I'll have a function, an arrow function. So here we'll create a variable that will append the content for these users in the HTML. So to have that ability, we'll use the jQuery, but let me just create a variable and I will show you where we bring in jQuery. So we'll create this content variable with an empty string like so. So you'll see how this works. So let's continue. In this query snapshot, we get it as an array. We use a for each to loop through the data and we get something we call a document. So I'll give it the name doc. Then remember the array that we created will push the users that we are getting from this snapshot. So the doc has the data for each user that we are getting. So we'll do all users, which is the variable for all users, not all user, but all users. All users dot push. We want to push doc dot data. Okay, this doc dot data contains the user in the user collection, in this collection. So we'll get this user, which is 1 for now. Then we'll say if auth user is not equal to null. Is not equal to null. So that means if we have a user, then we'll go ahead and say if auth user dot uid is not equal to doc dot data dot user id. So if it is not equal, we'll display the content for the other users. So that means I will not display the user that is authenticated. I will display the users that are within the collection. So since I can't chat with myself, that means, so we'll append the content for each users. So we'll do content plus equal. We create a UL element like this. So we get this functionality or this ability from jQuery. So we do that, then we give it a class of list dash group, then we close like so. So this should be outside, not the inside, like that. We proceed and do content plus equal we create an li. We can use yeah, we say li, we give it a class, will be equal to um, list dash group dash item. We give it a margin bottom of 3. We give it a bg dash light. We give it a text dash dark. We give a shadow. We give it a shadow dash large. We proceed and give it an ID. We'll say ID will be equal to user dash item. We give it an on-click event. We'll write a function here. We'll say handle user. So we'll do handle user like so. We have a backtick. Then we say plus doc dot data dot user ID. Okay, doc dot data dot user ID plus so this is basically a function, and we are passing the user ID of this user as a parameter. So we don't have this function yet. We'll create it soon. So we'll say plus then we close it like so. Then we close this function with a double slash. Then we'll change this to be like that. Then we'll close the whole thing. Okay, so this is a bit messy, but bear with me and we'll get this working. So let's append another data to the content. So we'll say content plus equal. Here we'll have a h1. We give it a class equal to. Then we close this. We'll append the doc dot data dot name plus we display this h1. Okay, so we close that. So doc.data.name, we are getting the name here and we are displaying it in a h1. So this name. So let's proceed and append another data to the content. So we'll create a p. We give it a class of will be equal to text dash primary will give an ID of online status dash. So we have to make this online status unique for this user. So what we'll do, we'll have this online status with an ID. So to do that, we'll use a $, because we'll change these strings here to backticks. So we'll change these strings to backticks. Then here we can use this template literal. So we'll do doc.data.user ID, like so. So now we can close this and close the p tag, like so. So let's have an image which will show the avatar plus equal. So the avatar for these users will be the same, will not handle the image uploading. So for now we'll just proceed and have the same avatar. So we'll have image img tag, we'll have an src which will point to the location. So the location will be, if you check here, we have images. So we'll do /images, then we say the avatar was JPEG, so we'll do .jpeg. We'll give it an alternative text. We'll say avatar. We just give it avatar. We give it a class of avatar img thumbnail. Then we close it like so. So this class name, we are getting it from the main.css. So I had the styles already created. So we have this avatar which has a height of 20 viewport height and a border radius of 100% to make it circular. So we'll close the li which we opened here. Remember we had this li. So we'll close it. So below here we'll do content plus equal the closing tag li, like so. Then we close the ul, this ul. We'll say content plus equal the ul. We have to make sure that is closed, like so. So what are we remaining with? So here, if you check here, if you check this p tag, we are getting this online status. Okay, and remember we created a file that will handle the online functionality. When the user, it will get the current user and store the status if the user is online or offline to the real-time database. So here we have to get that location in the real-time database and get the status of this user that we are displaying here. If you can check this p tag, we are getting this is empty, so we have to append that status that is here. So we'll proceed and create a function that will get that status. So we are here, we'll create a function. We'll say get online status. We get this user ID. We get the user ID for the user which we want to get the status. We return a new promise here. It takes two parameters. We have resolve or reject and reject. We have a function. Then we'll say const user status database reference. User status database reference will be equal to Firebase dot database dot it should be have curly braces. We say dot ref we get this location, then we append the user ID like so. So we say user status for database, user status database reference dot on value we get a snapshot we'll create a variable that will show if the user is online. So we'll say online status will be equal to snapshot dot val we inside this snapshot we have a status. So if we check what we had here, we created a status and the last changed. So this shows the time that when the user was last online. So here we say snapshot.val, then we have that optional sign. We say .state. So this means if this value does not exist, we'll just return undefined, I think. So let's proceed. .status, .state, not .status, .state, or we set this user to offline. Okay, so if the user is not online, we go ahead and do the offline. Online status snapshot.file.state or offline. Okay, so then here we resolve the online status, that is like returning this status. Okay, so let's now and proceed and get the status for each user. So hope you understand what we are doing here, because this functionality is a bit complicated, but we'll go ahead and try. So here below the UL, we'll create a variable user ID. We get the user ID for that user, doc.data.user ID, user ID. Then we call that function to get the online status. Remember, it takes the user ID as an argument. User ID, since it is a promise, we have a .then. We get that status, so we say online status. Online status. We open these braces. We open those braces. We say const online status element. Online status element will be equal to document dot get element by ID. We say online status dash the user ID. So here we'll concatenate and have this user ID here. Okay, so if this online status element exists, we'll make sure you close this. We'll say online status element dot text content. Text content will be equal to online status. So remember, here we have this ID for this user. We create an element which gets this ID for that user, which we have here. We say if this online status element exists, then we have online status element, which is this element, the P element. We add text content to it with the online status. So the online status, or the status itself, will be offline or online. Then let's handle the error. So we do here. So we'll say a .catch, we'll add a .catch method. We get an error. If there is an error, we'll just log for now. We'll log. Let's just log. We'll say error getting the status. Then we'll just do can have here the error like so. So now we have to append this content. We have to append this content to the, okay, if we proceed to home, we'll append this content to the users info, which we append it okay, yeah, we append it here. We append the content here. So we have to get this ID, which will do it with the jQuery, and append the content here in this div. So to do that, we'll So we have to make sure we are somewhere here. If we check, yeah, we have to make sure we are outside this query snapshot. So if we check the end of this snapshot, we get that it is here. So here we'll do a jQuery to get that div. So we'll say hash users dash info, then we'll append this content. So we'll say append that content, like so. Then let's catch that the error if we fail to get the users from this collection. So here we'll do a dot, then a dot catch, that is a dot catch. We'll say error. We'll just log this error, console.log this error, like so. So let's handle the click. When the user clicks on this, we want to display the message box. So with all this, let's see if we have something, if we can display the users in the page. So let's reload this and see if we can display the users. We are not getting anything. Let me inspect. We should get at least a user. And Firebase.database is not a function. So let's fix that. If we go to this file, we say Firebase.database is not a function. We check the home.html. Yeah, we are missing a script here for the database. So let's copy this link and paste it here. We'll do, I think it should be firebase.database if I'm correct. Let's reload that. We are still getting that error. Okay, let me check the previous build and see which link we are missing. It should be this link, but I don't know why it is not working. Firebase.database.js. Let me reload. Okay, we are getting reference.child failed.info.connected. So we have to make sure that this application is connected to the real-time database. Otherwise, we'll get this type of errors. So let's double check and see if we have a real-time database enabled to our project. So click real-time database. We'll click create database. Click next. Start in test mode. Click enable. Like so. So now let's proceed and see if we'll get rid of this error. We reload. Reference.child failed. Paths must be in an empty strings and can't contain dot slash. Okay, so should not contain. Okay, I see. I so here what we did, we should have not dot slash info as the location, but dot info slash connected, which we said is a special path in the real-time database. So now let's reload. And we are not getting any errors except for this. We are not appending anything. Okay, so we should get that user here displayed, but again we are using jQuery, so this will not work. We have to bring in that jQuery script for this to work, because we are appending the content. We are appending these UL elements or these HTML elements to the content, which again we are using jQuery to append this data to the user info ID. So to do that, we must use jQuery. So here in this build, in the previous build I did, we'll copy the jQuery CDN or the jQuery link, not the CDN, the script. So we'll have this script. We can just copy it here or below here. So let me just do it here. jQuery. So now if we reload this page, we should see that user. I've gone through the code, and what we did, we had a mistake here. If we check the ID for this div element that we are appending the content, it should be users, not user. So that is an issue or a problem we encountered. So the other issue was, if we check here the script, we don't have this script. So that again was a silly error. So let's fix that and add the script. So we'll say src, we'll say dot slash, it should point to the send message .js file. So now if we reload this page and wait for this response, because it's my type. Okay, we are getting another error. Okay, let's check the import. Wow, the MIME type. Oops. Refuse to execute. What? yeah, we get this user here. So that was supposed to work. I don't know why it refused. So now when we click this user here, we want to display a message box. Okay, so to do that, we'll proceed here to the send message.js file, and we'll remember we had a function to handle that. We check here, we had this function as an on click. So we'll have a window here, handle user, which will be equal to a function which will take in the ID we'll say document dot query selector we say dot msg box dot class list. We check if the class list contains hide box. So these are classes we had in the main.css. If we check hide box, we set the display to none. So here what we are doing, if it contains this hide box, that means the display for this div is none. We toggle. Okay, so we will actually we'll have this in an if. Let's cut that and have it in an if. If this is true, if the class list, this div contains this class of hide box, which sets the element to none, display of none, we want to show something like document dot query selector, we'll say dot msg box dot msg box dot class list dot remove. We want to remove that class like so. So we'll have this, if I can type hide box. So let's try and do that. We get this ID. Actually, we don't need an ID here. We have a function, we do, okay, so let's try and see if that will work. If I click, nothing is working. So let me inspect these elements. What is the error now? Let me log something here. I'll just say hello to see. Invalid token. Unexpected. Invalid. Invalid or unexpected token at home. Handle user, okay. So we have an error here. So when we click handle user, What could be the error? We open here. We append this. We close here. Close again here. No, I don't know. Yeah, so this, it should not be a double string, it should be a single string, because what? Unterminated string literal. So that means there is something we are not closing, or user item. We should have this here, like so. Then should we close that? No, actually, I'll have a semicolon there, and let's try this again. So it displays the user. Yeah, awesome. Okay, so when we click this user, we get this message box. So let's proceed now and have so the data for this user displayed here on top of this message. So to do that, we'll get this ID of this user and find the user that matches that ID. So to do that, we have a function here, which when we click, we pass in an ID, which we display hit here, which we have it here in the, where is it? Okay, so can't find it. What did we call handle user? Handle user. Yeah, this on click handler. So we pass it here. So we get that ID here, and what we do, we'll find the user that matches that ID. So here we'll say find the user that matches the ID. So we'll say const user will be equal to all users, which is the array that stores the users. So we'll say all users that find the user which the user.user ID matches to the ID that we are passing in. So here we'll proceed and have document.getElement by ID. We say user item, user-item, which is this div here, user item. We want to append content inside there for that user that we clicked. User item dot inner HTML will be equal to, we'll say, we'll have an image img src, which will point to ./images/avatar.jpg. We'll say alternative text set to avatar. We'll give it a class of mx-3 give it a class of user img-fluid, then we'll pass an on-click, we'll say backticks, say $, it will be a function, we'll do scroll to top. So this will be a function that we don't have yet. Then we'll close this. So what's the error here? Expected. So here what I can do, what are we missing? Yeah, I'll remove this backticks and yeah, like that. Then I'll have an h3. I'll have h3. I'll say give it a class of text dash primary $, oops, sign will say user dot name, then we close this h3, not like so. So now if we check, when we click this user, let me reload. Okay, we have to start the live server. So let's see. Reload. Let's get started. We see these users. If I click this user, so we did not append anything because the ID, the user dash item dot. So let me log this user and see all users dot find user id. So let me log that user. Are we getting that user? So if I click, okay, if I click, we get this user. So is it the class name user dash item, the ID user dash item, we append this content like so, or it's this error. Let's create the function for this function here. So let me say function scroll to top. Oops, it should be window dot scroll to top, window dot scroll to here. Then we'll say top, we'll have it as 0. So when I click, it will take me to the top of the page, and I'll have the behavior to be a smooth scroll. So now if I click this, we get the name and the avatar is not showing. So if we check the image element here, it should be SRC, not SCR. So let's change that. And now if we check our browser, we should get an avatar, not what we had as the alternative. We should have that avatar. So now we'll wait for that reload, which is taking a bit of time, but we'll just wait. So now if we check here, we get this avatar. So this is what should be displayed, not the other way. So now we'll begin with the functionality of sending that message. So how will we do it? We'll say document dot get element by ID. The name of that element, it has an ID of send message. So if we check that ID, actually it is the button. We want every time when we click this send button, we want to get that click event, and then we want to trigger something. We want to store the message. Okay, so how do we do it? So here we'll pass in that ID send message. We'll have an on click which will be equal to a function. So here we'll say MSG actually if you check here, we have the text area. So every time I send this, I want to get this message from this text area. So that's why we are having a variable called MSG, which will store that message. We'll do document dot get element by ID. We'll say message, we'll say dot value, we get that value. We'll say let send message be equal to Firebase dot do we need this variable? No, we don't need it. We'll say Firebase dot Firestore dot collection. So we create a collection called messages. Then we say dot doc. Then we do a dot send message. Okay, now I get the meaning of this variable. So say dot send message, we assign it a variable like so. So now what we can do here is set now that message. We can do a send message dot set, then we do message, which is the message, set to the MSG variable, which is the actual message. Then we do doc ID, send message dot ID. Okay, we proceed, we say message from, so this will be the ID will be the user ID for the current user. So we can have a variable to get that user, but remember we had a variable which contained the current user, so this user here, the user from the local storage. If we check the local storage, let me check the local storage. If we check on the application local storage, we have this user object which contains the, do we have the UID? Yes, we have the UID. So now what we can do here, we can say auth user dot UID. Let me log this ID to make sure what we are doing is correct. So console.log auth user dot UID. Let's log this. If I click now, let's wait. If I click something, write something there, if I click send, check on the console, we get these sets with invalid data, unsupported field type undefined, found in field message from. So we get it as undefined. What if now it should be auth user.user. Now let's see. Should be auth user.user. I'll wait for that. Now if I click write something, click send, we get the ID. Okay, so now we'll remove this log, then here we'll replace it with auth user.user.uid. Then we'll have a timestamp. This will contain the time to which this message was sent. So we'll do Firebase. Remember how we did it. We said firebase.firestore dot, actually we'll use here, we did when we were setting the online status here, we used the server value. In this case we'll use what we call a field value, then we'll get that server timestamp. So we'll say field value dot server timestamp, like so. Firebase.firestore.fieldValue.server timestamp. Then we have a dot then here. We have a dot then which takes in a function, an arrow function. Here we'll just say message sent. We'll just log message sent. Then we'll scroll. Whenever we send this message, we'll scroll to the top. So how do we do it? We say window dot scroll to, then we say we have an object, we say top, we set it to 0, we set the behavior to be smooth. We proceed and say document dot get element by ID is a info message. So that is the name of that element with the ID info message. We say dot inner text. We want to show a message. The text will be message sent. We'll proceed and set a timeout. So we'll set a timeout, time out, which takes a function and the number of milliseconds. So we'll have 3000 milliseconds. This is 3 seconds. So after 3 seconds, we'll say document dot get element by ID info message. We'll set the inner text to empty. So after 3 seconds, we want to clear that element. You might be wondering, what is this info MSG that we are passing the value here as message sent? Let me show you. You might be wondering which is this element that we are setting the inner text to be message sent whenever we send this message instead of a console log. So this element, it is let me show you here. We check here inside this div, we see a h3 with the ID of info message, and there is also this p tag with the text info msg. So actually we'll not need this one for now. I'll just comment this. So now when I send a message, okay, it's loading. When I send a message, it should clear that sent a value. What is happening? Okay, so now when I send a message here, I'll say hello. Now when I send, we get this message sent. After 3 seconds, it clears. Okay, so let's continue and handle now the messages and how the users will receive those messages. So outside this onClick function, or outside this function, this is where we'll handle all our messages. So I'll have a comment, handle messages. So now we'll do Firebase dot Firestore. We'll say dot collection. We'll say the messages collection. Then okay, we can assign this a variable, const messages will be equal to firebase.firestore. Then we'll do messages dot order by. We'll order these messages by the timestamp like so. They'll be ascending. Then we'll do dot on snapshot. Let's say we'll get a message snapshot then we'll do message snapshot dot for each message we want to, we'll get the current user, which we'll get, actually we had a user here assigned to this variable called auth user. So instead of getting the user again, we can use that variable which gets the user from the local storage. So now what we'll do, we'll just check if the message dot data dot message, remember we had a message dot message from is equal to the auth user. Inside that auth user we had a user, and then we'll get the UID, not the ID but the UID. Now we check if the message from is equals to this user and the message dot data dot message to is equal to the ID. So this is the ID that we are passing here for the user. So we check here if the message from is equals to the user that is sending the message, and we are sending it to the ID, the user that we clicked. So let me show you with this one. So this user, so we're getting the ID for this user. So now and the message too. So if we check here, when we are sending these messages, we had a message from and a message to. So here we forgot something, so we should have a message to. So this will be the receiver. We'll set it to the ID which we're passing as a parameter in that function. So now we can continue. We can continue. So here we'll open this double curly braces and create a content. We have to create a content variable. So here when we create this snapshot, we'll say let content be equal to that. So now we can append. We'll say content plus equal. We'll open br close. Then we'll have another one, content plus equal. We'll have a string, we'll have a pic with a class of text dash danger. We'll give it lead. We'll have a class called me. So if you check here in our main.css, we have a me class. So we'll see how that works. So we'll continue. Me, then we'll close this again, class. Okay, let's use backticks instead of double. We'll have a $sign, then double curly braces. We'll say message dot data dot message. Then we'll proceed and close this P element. So now, if we are the one sending the message, this will contain the message inside that div. Then we go ahead and pass these classes. So the text will be this color from Bootstrap. We'll give it a lead, and then we'll have this me class for this background that we are having here, and the color and the padding for that text. Okay, we'll have another if for the one that is receiving the message. So we'll say if message dot data dot message to. So if I'm the one receiving the message, it will be auth user dot uid, and the message dot data dot message from is equal to the ID. Then this is what we'll do. We'll copy this content and have it here. We'll have this content. We'll change this danger to be info. Then we'll give it lead, like so. We'll proceed and append this content to the box element, which is a div that will contain these messages. So we'll append this content here inside this div. So to do that, we must make sure we are outside this for each loop. So here we'll get that element. We'll say document dot get element by ID. We'll target that div with a ID of box message. We'll do inner HTML to append HTML to that content. So I'll say to that div, that is content, like so. So now everything should work just fine, except for, if we check here, okay, let me log in again. Yeah, let me do a login. Use login. We log in Kevin at gmail.com. Kevin 1 2 3. We'll go to the home page where we'll display these users. So I added these users. I added Paul and Christine. So now if I try and send a message, we should get, let me say hi, send. We get a message sent. We display the message. So now there's one thing we are missing. We are missing the status. So check the ID here of this element that we are displaying, the status. So this online status, we should have an uppercase S here, because they should be exactly the same. So that was an error we did. So now if I now check the page, we should see the status. So I'll just remove this log, which I did. Just remove it. So now let me try and see if we can chat now with the user when the user that is logged in. So I'll open the incognito window and say localhost 5500 / login. Let's do Paul 123. Login Paul. So Paul will try and chat with Kevin, but we see Kevin is offline. Now the problem was with if we check here, we were passing state, and if you check our real-time database, we had the status, not the state. So that should be status, not state. So now if we check, let's wait. Okay, so now if we check here, we get Kevin is online. So now let me open another tab, this one. So we see Paul is online. We see also Kevin is online. So in this tab, we have Paul. In this window, that is, in this window, I've logged in Paul. So now if I try and chat with Kevin, let me, here I will select, here I have Paul, so we have Kevin. So let me reload this. I chat with Paul. You can see Paul is online. So if I say hello Paul, we should get a message here. Here we'll just type in hey. So you see, we get that real-time functionality. So now let's work on the emoji. Here in the text area, we pick an emoji, then we send it with the text, with the message. So to do that, we'll use something called emoji picker. So let me copy that CDN that will give us that ability. So now I'll copy these scripts here. I will paste it inside my home page. Let me have a comment. I'll say emoji picker. I'll paste that here. We don't need the jQuery since we had it, since we have it here. So now let's now create a script that will populate that emojis in that text area. So we'll create a script here. We'll have $. We'll say document dot ready. Let's give it a function. Open this function. Let's say $. We'll get that message ID. Make sure you have it in strings. Get, we say dot emoji one area We'll open it, we pass an object, we say position, pick a position, pick a position. We'll have it position at the bottom. We'll do tones. We'll have it as false. We'll pass some events. Events will be an object. We'll do a key up. So we'll do a function. We pass two arguments, editor, event, not arguments but parameters, editor events. So here we'll access the typed text and handle it as needed. So say var text is equals to editor dot html. So now if I check the page, so now if I check this, it is not working. What did I do wrong? So if you check this ID $hash message, which is this ID here, pick a position, we position it to the bottom, say tones is equals to false. Documents. Okay, let's reload this page again. Why is it not working? Okay, so now if we reload this page again, we get this emoji picker. So now I can pick an emoji here. Say hey. So now if I check on this side, if I check on Kevin, you're getting these emojis here. So that's it for the app. Congratulations, you have finished the end of this tutorial. Remember, learning is a continuous journey and the skills you have acquired here are just the beginning. Keep practicing, exploring, and seeking new opportunities to apply what you have learned. Embrace challenges as stepping stones towards growth and improvement. Always remember to share your new found knowledge with others. By doing so, you contribute to the growth and development to help and inspire others on their learning paths. Together we can achieve remarkable things. I hope this tutorial has ignited a spark within you, a passion for learning, and a thirst for knowledge. As you embark on your future endeavors, remember that every great achievement starts with a willingness to learn. Thank you for this tutorial journey. I wish you the best in your future endeavors. Peace.